Hi, this is an introduction to fiction for you who are just about to begin flash fiction for English 109. I'd like to talk to you for just a few minutes about the particular elements of fiction that we'll concentrate on as you prepare your first story. Those elements are basically characterization and situation. Character and situation. The situation will involve conflict. The character has to be interesting and attractive in some way, not necessarily physically, but also believable. Okay? So we're writing mostly realistic fiction. We're not going off and creating a fantasy world at this point. And you're writing about a character that's believable in a situation that you make up. Okay. I wanted to tell you what John Irving said too, because I think you'll identify with this. I certainly do as a writer. And he said that, I feel like the characters I wrote already existed before I, as a poor slob, picked them up and put them on the paper. They already existed. That's how your characters should feel. It should feel like there is in the back of your mind or your memory some form that could become this fictional character. Now, how do you create a character? And it really does need to be creation, right? Because we're talking about fiction, not nonfiction. Fiction means that you are inventing a lot of elements within this story. You could have been inspired by something that happened to you, but you're not trying to tell the literal truth of what happened. Fiction is better than truth, some people say, because truth is bound by the facts. Fiction isn't. Fiction is only bounded by the imagination, which has no bounds. So you can get at truths of the human condition in a very interesting way through fiction. Okay, so the first thing is to choose a character that is really interesting and believable. You can make this person up, or it might be based on traits of 2 or 3 people that you know, or someone that you just observed in passing. You don't want to make it, again, literally from your life, because you could get sued, and that's nonfiction, not fiction. So first thing is come up with an interesting character. And then the other thing is to come up with a great situation. You might think of several plot possibilities, and remember, you don't have a long time to develop a complex, convoluted plot with subplots and all that you would have to devise if you were writing a novel or even a novella. But in flash fiction, you've only got about 2-3 pages really to get a full story out there. So it's a story of a moment, a few moments, a portion of a day. No more than that. Don't try to cover a lot of time. Instead, zero in. Imagine you're a movie camera following your character around for just an hour. What happens in that hour? That can be your story. So think of it that way. So what happens if your character butts up against some conflict that is going to be particularly difficult because of who he or she is? So think of the traits that you're creating to go along with your character, not just age and career and male or female, but political leanings, religious background, sayings he or she has and likes to throw out frequently, point of view, the way he or she looks at the world, introversion, being very shy, or extroversion, or something in between. How sociable is that character? All kinds of things you can think up to help you create the character. Then what would that particular character, imagining him or her as a human being, need to confront in order to come to some sort of realization about himself or herself? That realization, if you can get to it, makes for great fiction. That moment of realization is called an epiphany. E-P-I-P-H-A-N-Y. It's in your list of terms. If you can get an epiphany for a character, that's an awesome moment. You may have a quieter story in mind where there really isn't an epiphany. It's just sort of a slice of life story, and that's okay too. So for your first story, I'm looking, third person is fine, just writing about saying he, she, that kind of narrative voice is fine for the first story. For the second story, okay, in a couple of weeks when you're preparing your second flash fiction story, the challenge will be to use first person, I, to write from the voice of a character, from his or her mind and words, as if you were just in on his or her thoughts and able to get a whole story, again, from a short moment of time, from the way that character would tell it. Those are your first two challenges. I wish you well, and if you need any help one-on-one, come see me. Remember, I also expect each of you to go to the Center for Reading and Writing and get some individual feedback, both concepts and how the story is playing out, and also just to get in the habit of surface editing. We'll talk about deep revision later in the semester, really going back and completely working one or two pieces that you write this semester, but you have to at least get in the habit, even for a rough draft now. I'm a stickler about this. You have to proofread. Read what comes out of the printer before you turn it in. And if you're pressed for time and you have to make a few changes with your pen, I'd rather that than have a sloppy paper with lots of typos or silly errors that you can catch yourself. I'm not here to teach you how to catch those things. You should get in the habit of doing that. I can teach you grammar and mechanics and other elements of style as we progress through the semester. Okay, thanks. I'll see you the next time.